Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series after Arsenal were beaten 1-0 at Nottingham against Forest in the third round of the FA Cups. Deja vu all over again. Kind of glad that I didn't go in the end. That would have been a long journey to lose and experience what was by far one of the worst performances of the season by quite some distance. And, it's frustrating because the FA Cup is a competition that I enjoy being in. It's a competition that I have enjoyed us getting the wins in. And it's not a defeat that should be taken lightly. It's also not a defeat that we need to overreact to. And I think that is certainly something I've seen plenty of people do. I think there's been a level of under reaction and overreaction. I think the right amount kind of for where I feel about this and this game is I'm a bit peeved off that we lost, but I'm putting into context a lot of the reasons as to why we lost. I don't think this is a reason to throw Arteta under the bus or anything like that after what has been a brilliant run of form. I think this is a situation where we find ourselves in, hopefully giving us a lot of answers to the questions that we well, even the questions, but the things that we know, the fact that we're weak in midfield, the fact that we're a Lacazette injury away from striker disaster, that despite a real resistance in a couple of the shows that we've done and my criticism of Cedric, that Cedric is not that good and that we should have better options there. I still don't think that we need to go out and buy that. I just think that, it's not, Cedric is not good enough. It's as simple as that. And, he isn't. So we need to move on from him. And it's the reason why we have. And if Tommy Asu was available, I'm sure he would have played. It's a game of decisions. It's a game that we're going to have to talk through with you guys, how you feel about some of the decisions that Arteta made as well, and with the team lineup and who played, etc. But to start things off, obviously, it's important to address the No More Red campaign and the shirt. And obviously what that means, it's a shame that the impact of that could not kind of transpire with the result, but obviously it's being done for a very good cause, and fingers crossed that the shirts that are donated are going to go and go forward to help a lot of really good causes out there, and hopefully it has some form of impact because it's a very important issue that's been raised. Anyway, let's focus on the game, and I think there is only one real place to start, and we kind of need to tackle the big talking point, which was, despite losing, the big talking point happened about 30 minutes into the game because Nuno Tavares was hooked by Mikel Arteta. What do you think about this? Tell me and explain your reasons. Do you think that Arteta was right to make that decision? If so, why? Do you think he was not right to make that decision? And if so, why? Do let me know. I want to read through some of your thoughts and feelings about this, and then I'll kind of give you my kind of viewpoint on the topic, because I certainly know that it's going to cause division. I know where I sit. I sit quite firmly on the opinion that I have, but I want to see what you guys have to say first. Omar says, right decision. Tavares had a disgusting game. Javier says Tavares was furious and threw his gloves near Arteta. The Black Swordsman says good calls should have happened to more of them sooner. Rahul disagrees. Too early to sub him. John G says, yeah, 100%. Omar says he was shocking. Arteta was right. Matt G said, I had no problem with taking him off. He was terrible. I want a manager who will make tough calls. Jay Purdy says, I thought that the decision was much easier to make with Tierney on the bench. James says, yes, he was right. Made way too many mistakes and looked like he had zero energy. I think he gave the ball away 8 times in 30 minutes, which just was, the back pass in particular was comical, absolutely comical. Michael says, wrong because the sub changed nothing. Tierney was bullied just as much. Shoro says, hi, Tom. Unfair to hook Tavares when other players were just as shocking. Clarify said he was the worst player on the pitch. He needed to be subbed. Should have waited till half-time, says Rahul. He was terrible, says Stefan. Luco says, feel like Arteta was annoyed at a lot of players like Holding, etc., but Tavares was the closest to him on that wing, and I reckon he lost at him and dragged him off. Glenn says his performance was poor, but no worse than most others. I don't think it was a wrong decision, but it didn't help. David says, yes, based on the amount of times he lost the ball and his attitude. Keely says the big talking point was no shots on target, and certainly Keely's something else that we're going to come on to. But this is the biggest talking point in regards to kind of what has divided a lot of people. Though saying that, I think a lot of people in here are actually agreeing with the decision. Daniel says Arteta was right. Tavares was awful, and I think Arteta's hoped it would have got a positive reaction from the team, but it didn't happen. Blow says Arteta was harsh. I thought he might have subbed him at half time. And there's a lot more comments as well. I think Arteta was right, is my opinion. I think that Tavares was very, very poor, and I've longed for a manager to recognise when someone's having a really poor game, and I know he wasn't the only one at that point in time. I'm not saying that he was the only one, but I thought that it was the right decision to take him off. You've got a player like Tierney and his quality on the bench to come on. I don't agree with the point of view that this is... I think I saw a comment right at the beginning of the video criticising Arteta on what it would do to the player. Essex Bloke says, evening all, I have never heard Arteta simply isn't good enough to be the manager of Arsenal Football Club. Tavares will never be the same again and will never respect Arteta. We've lost a player because of Arteta's narcissism. Essex Bloke, I think you're going way, 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 way over the top. I don't think that's the case at all. If you see Klopp do this, and he has done, if you see Mourinho do this, and he has done, it's part and parcel of what managers do. And yet those managers have gone on to win a lot of trophies. It is just part and parcel of the game that these are the types of decisions that can be made. I don't think it's anything to bash the manager with. I think it's something actually that he comes out with more credit than anything. If Tavares came off and wasn't annoyed, I would be more concerned. His reaction actually is far, far, far more pleasing to me than if he had just come off, sat down and sulked. You might say that he sulks, but actually I like his angry reaction. Hopefully that turns into a response to prove that Arteta was wrong to pull him off. And if he's a player that, that is going to be petulant and that it is affected, and he is affected by that and goes on to have awful performances, I don't really want that type of personality at the club. I'd rather have someone that reacts to these things positively and that when faces these types of challenges, responds to them in a really positive way. So that's kind of where I sit on the Tavares thing. I thought it was a fine decision to take him off. I don't agree that it will affect the player in any negative sense, but if it does, to be honest, that's more negatively of a perspective on Tavares than it is Arteta. And I think Arteta had all of the will in the world and all of the right to make that choice as well. Maggie says, if getting subbed off after having a bad 30 minutes destroys his confidence, then he shouldn't be at the club. I do tend to agree with you. In regards to the other substitutions in the game, now my understanding is that Arsenal could have made 5 subs during the game. I know they're young, and I know that obviously it's a game in which we were hoping to bring them on if it was a very favourable scoreline. But you've got players like Biereth, you've got players like Hutchinson on the bench that have done things that are exciting, young talents. We need a goal, and Nketiah was very, very poor. Get them on. Give them an opportunity to play. I found that so strange that Nketiah survived the entire match. I thought he had a very, very poor game. I was surprised that so many of the players that were still on the field survived most of it. I was shocked, to be honest, that so many survived the game. And why bring Kolasinac on with 3 minutes to go? I kind of get the idea of pushing Tierney into a wider, more advanced role to get more crosses into the last 5 minutes, but not in the 88th minute. I mean, as soon as they score, make the change. Like, bring the player on in that specific moment. Why wait until a couple of minutes later? I didn't get that at all. Oh, look, the Arteta out crowd's coming out of the woodwork. What a surprise. In regards, though, to the actual performance overall, I think the main thing to take away from this was highlighting how weak we are in midfield and how the depth of the midfield is just really concerning at this stage. Arteta's decision to allow Ainsley Maitland-Niles to leave on loan before bringing in a replacement is an error. I don't use the word criminal like a lot of people have used on Twitter today, but it's an error. Without a shadow of a doubt, it is an absolute error on their part to have allowed that to happen so early on in the January window without securing a replacement. I find that really strange. But what I would say is that I think because of the team that played today and because of the lack of depth, we can draw context from this. We can compartmentalize this game. We don't need to have a meltdown. We don't need to be encouraged by, some of the more hyperbolic personalities out there to suddenly turn on the head coach after 5 really solid Premier League performances in a game in which we lacked both our 2 starting midfielders, our starting right back, starting goalkeeper, starting left centre back, starting striker from the beginning of the game. We lacked Antony, of course, until 30 minutes in. I think that it shows the drop-off in quality that there is, and it adds perspective to what we need to understand about what needs to change. People talking about how we're 2 kind of big signings away from challenging for a title is so wide of the mark. Like, yes, a striker and a centre midfielder, if they're the top level, would certainly push us in the right direction. But we need to have a huge overhaul of the behind-the-scenes stuff, the fringe players, the depth in the side. We need to move players on. Cedric needs to go. Holding needs to be replaced with someone better, and thankfully we've got someone in Saliba coming back who is better. I think Tavares is a good player. I thought he had a bad game. I feel like he will come good from this. Lokonga had a bad game. I know that he's better than that. We've seen some really, really good performances from him, like against Brighton, against Aston Villa. 2 really, really strong performances. And to be honest, I don't think he deserved to be dropped against Man United and Everton and so on. So he's a good player, still very young. He's going to make some mistakes. He had a bad game. And to be honest, Lokonga was very much coming off the back of not playing at all, very cold. So I kind of understand his situation there. Patino is an 18-year-old kid. He's very, very young. And the expectation, the people saying that we should have played more kids today than we did before kickoff, the amount of people I saw saying, why isn't Hutchinson starting? Why isn't Salah starting? Because Nottingham Forest are still a very decent side that are pushing for the playoffs and the championship. You can't complain about an arrogant performance when the opinion before the game was arrogant in itself to throw more kids into the play. We had to play Patino today because we had no other option. He's the only other central midfielder that we have right now. We have got how many days until Liverpool? We've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's 3 days, and I don't expect us to bring in a signing before then. But that's 3 days for either Granit Xhaka to return from isolation, or it's going to be Patino and Lokonga. Or Smith Rowe comes back and we go 4-3-3 against Liverpool, and you play Lokonga as the single 6, and you go with Ødegaard and Smith Rowe ahead of him. They're the options that we have. Patino is still developing. He's still specialising. It was a very combative, industrious, physical Nottingham Forest side that he was always going to struggle with in this type of game. And to expect an amazing performance from him on the first run is far, far too high. The youth of this side showed its colours today as well. I think the immaturity was there. The decision-making was wrong on Saka's part on a lot of times as well. And I thought that Martinelli was really kind of bossed a lot. Is it Spence, I think, was on the right-hand side for Forest? There were so many issues that we had in there. And Arsenal Granny, we absolutely give Forest some credit, but you can't be blinded by the positive performance of the opposition. You need to be able to look and criticise effectively and constructively. It's not about saying he's crap, he's rubbish, he's awful. It's not about that. It's about seeing solutions to problems. So when we say Cedric isn't good enough, Holding isn't good enough, it's about talking about what we then need to do to change that and to bring forward solutions. If you're blinded by positivity, if you're blinded by a lack of criticism, which some people, let's face it, and I have been in the past, very much are, you will miss the point on so many occasions. You will miss the necessary solutions that need to be added into the mix to be able to come up with a better opinion about the game. And that for this game was the lack of depth, the need to really move on from Eddie Nketiah. He needs to be sold. That situation just needs to be removed from the club because it's not benefiting anyone. Let's be real. It's not benefiting Arsenal that have now cup-tied a player and arguably taken a little bit off his value as well. We may as well have just started Lacazette during this game. I know the argument that he could get injured and all of that, but we're in the January transfer window. We shouldn't be in this situation. Balogun maybe would have played, but looks like he's off to Middlesbrough on loan, and of course was positive today, so couldn't play anyway. But we should have sorted this ages ago, and we do need to sort some stuff. Mo says, "Is Smith Rowe's injury sorted?" I didn't think. I don't think that it's an injury that is a concern. But what I do think is that it's one that you're never going to be able to sit here and say, always going to be available for Liverpool. So that's what I think you need to take into account. Where else are we on this? The lack of shots on target. Again, we go back to Nketiah. Lacazette, I thought, was introduced way too late. Introduced him at halftime. I don't know why we didn't bring him on earlier. The substitutions made today, despite the fact we made one after 30 minutes, were too late when, in the ones that really could have changed things. Lacazette brought on way too late. Kolasinac, or the third sub. And I think we can actually could we make more than 3 subs? I was at the Charlton game today and they made more than 3 subs. Or Norwich definitely made more than 3 subs unless there was a concussion. So I'm not sure why we didn't make more substitution or didn't give, say, Hutchinson or Biereth a run from, say, the last 10 to 15 minutes of the game, especially when we went down. That was a bit strange. Yeah, so we have 5 subs that we could have made today. Why didn't we go a little bit more gung-ho to try and get it back? It was a little bit strange why we didn't try and do something different. So there you go. Cass says, I'm not angry, disappointed, nor upset with the result. This just shows the team is just inconsistent. With the team, it also shows me they will go through high and low results this season. I'll tell you what it does do. I mean, if we're going to try and look on the bright side of things, we now don't have another distraction as we try and chase top 4. We're in the League Cup semi-final. We're 3 games away from winning a bit of silverware this season. I would be delighted to take a League Cup home and to push towards a top 4 place. What I really don't think is that we should be looking to melt down over a performance that didn't include most of our first team players. No Ramsdale, no Tomiyasu, no Gabriel, no Tierney from the start, no Xhaka, no Partey, no Lacazette from the start. Like, we were missing, and Smith Rowe obviously wasn't there either. We couldn't even bring him off the bench. So to feel like we need to melt down after this, I think that tells you more kind of about the mindset of individuals who are melting down after this than it does about kind of looking at where Arsenal can go from here and seeing that what we need to do in the next few games. There are rightful criticisms to be made, but to suddenly be calling for the manager's head after this type of game, after where we are in the table and where we've been and the performance against Man City that we had, it is. And yes, Reggie, the FA Cup is a route into Europe. You're right. However, what I would say, it's the route into the Europa League, which, let's be real, if we're not finishing in the Europa League places this season, Arteta's future should definitely be up for question anyway. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the FA Cup being missed out upon, if you know what I mean. Because if we're not finishing in the top 6, then the coach probably doesn't deserve to stay on beyond this season, is what I would say in response to that. Marsh says, Arteta was afraid of losing because of the Amazon cameras. They wanted to win so they could make it about fighting knife crime and celebrating Patino. They're probs deleting this episode. Marsh, I think that is the most conspiracy theorist load of bogus, load of bollocks I've ever seen or read on this channel. That was an awful take. Gooner Legend says, Tom, is not mismanagement to let AMN leave without having cover in place? I think it's an error. I think it's certainly an error. I think it's a right criticism to have. I think that it was absolutely a mistake to let him go without bringing in cover first. Arteta kind of explained it in the sense that Maitland-Niles had asked to leave, and that the player had been like a bit of a protagonist in that decision. But I'm sorry, if you're so headstrong that you're tearing players off the pitch after 30 minutes, surely you can be headstrong enough to say, look, we're in a real situation right now. Xhaka's not training. Partey's at the AFCON. I've got an 18-year-old kid I'm going to have to start against Nottingham Forest. We're going to need you for this weekend. Play this game and then go off on loan to Roma. I don't see why that wasn't an opportunity that was given to us, or why they didn't make that decision and be a little bit harder on that one, to be honest. I really don't get it. Name Blocked says, Arteta got rid of Maitland-Niles to secure a place for his mates. I don't think that matters. I really don't think that matters, mate. Russ says, why do this? We have no European football this season. We should be playing the strongest team possible. I think we kind of did, didn't we? I mean, other than Lacazette not starting, and obviously Leno's always going to start, I feel like we did kind of play what was available to us. I'm looking at the bench, and only Lacazette, Tierney maybe for Tavares, but let's be real, Tavares should have been a lot better and has been a lot better than he was today. I don't see what much we could have changed. Maybe Chambers over Cedric, but even then, it's not a huge difference between the two. That's besides Lacazette, I think that's the strongest we really could have gone today because of all of the injuries and because of the positive test that we've got at the moment. And again, that falls on the mismanagement of getting us into this situation. We shouldn't be sitting on the 9th of January with an 18-year-old as our possible starter against Liverpool. Like we shouldn't be at this point. Let's scroll down a little bit further. Dano says Cedric has the potential to replace Tommy. Jonty says Roy Keane said we looked like a Madrid but played like a pub team. It was sad but true. Honestly, anyone that's using the kit as any kind of negative hit, take a long, hard look at yourself and grow the hell up. Zamir says, this becomes a non-topic if we beat Spuds and continues our league form. I take it as a blip in the road and we need to move on. Look, we can have the serious conversations about where we're at after the Spurs game, because the Spurs game is crucial. You lose that game and we lose that badly against a Spurs side that, I'm sorry, is a poor Spurs side. They aren't very good right now. People are talking about Conte transforming this side. They were awful against Morecambe. They were awful against Southampton. They were awful against Watford and got a jammy win in that game. They went out by default from the Europa Conference League, even with Conte there at that point. They are a very beatable team, and we should be winning that game at Tottenham if, and it is a big if, we've got our first team fit. And if we are lacking a lot of players, if we are, then there's again, it's not I hate when people turn around and saying it's an excuse, because I'm sorry, but having Cedric and Holding and, Patino starting at centre midfielder against Spurs, that's not an excuse. That's a genuine reason why we could lose that game, because those players are not good enough and we need our starters. When people talk about excuses when it comes down to the actual players that are available, I find it really strange. J2 the first says midfield was poor today and Cedric was very shaky. Need a proper backup right back. That Spence lad did a proper job. He did. I thought he was excellent, actually. I thought he had a very, very good game. And he says, Tom, what changes do you expect for the Liverpool game? It depends what happens with the fitness, Andy. I mean, the only change that we can expect from the starting lineup, from what we saw today, if no one is fit from who wasn't available today, is Lacazette in for Nketiah and Tierney in for Tavares. Arguably, you could go to, say, a back three, or you go to a 4-3-3 with Smith Rowe if he's fit. But I don't think you can start Patino against Liverpool. I just think that's too big of a challenge at this moment in time, especially after a very difficult performance. Lewis says, Spurs' underlying numbers are much improved. Don't be complacent. I'm not being complacent. It's not about being complacent, Lewis. It's about being realistic. Their numbers might have improved, yes, but they're still very, very beatable. And if we have our best team available, which again is the caveat, and if we don't, then we can have a discussion about why we didn't pick up all the points if that happens. But if we have all of our first team players available, bar Partey, then we should be winning that game, especially with no Son as well. Anza says, Tom, I feel like Ainsley is going to play predominantly at right back for Roma like he did today. We might not need a backup right back in the summer. I don't expect him to stay in the summer, to be honest. Pablo says, I'm annoyed, but not too bothered about today. I won 3 points against Spurs, and I want to beat Liverpool. I'm where you are, mate. Sheath King says, what did Ben Jacobs say about our situation by the end of January and the likelihood of signing Vlahovic? Well, you're going to have to watch the show, mate, aren't you, to find out. Alistair says, maybe a loss here could make Arsenal move faster in the transfer market. I don't think so. I don't think it'll make Arsenal move faster, because I think Arsenal are already trying to do as much as they can in the market right now. It may make us, be a little bit more decisive about the midfielder, but it's not going to speed up the Vlahovic situation. That's not going to be sped up by our loss today. So if you're assuming that us losing to Nottingham Forest means that suddenly we'll sign Vlahovic earlier than expected or earlier than we ever could have done, I'm sorry, but that's not going to be the case. The only thing that might change is the decision-making around a central midfielder. That's the only thing that might, but I still don't think it will have too much of a problem. Navarro says, Tom, what was Lokonga doing hiding behind Notts Forest players when our centre-backs had the ball? I can't explain his decision-making in the game. He's, as I said, he's still a very, very young player. He's had really good games this season, and he's had some real clangers to forget this season as well. Stephen says, Gabriel will be back as well as Tommy. Fingers crossed they will be, because and Ramsdale, of course, as well. That will be huge for us. Julian says, isn't Gabriel available for Thursday? He is, yes. I wouldn't push White into defensive midfield. I hate this suggestion. No offense. I just hate the suggestion of putting White in midfield. I don't get it. Rob, Forest fan here, just to say that while I am sure you are upset at your team's performance and score, thank you for your fans being so gracious about our performance. It means a lot. Rob, you were brilliant. You deserved the win. We didn't. We absolutely did not. And as someone who lived in Nottingham for 3 years, I was gutted that I couldn't be at the game and go up there. I just couldn't risk the game being called off and driving all the way up there, Rob. But yeah, it was. You played fantastic, and best of luck going for the playoffs, fella. And do us a favour and beat Leicester in the next round. They get too big for their boots sometimes. And as a former Nottingham resident, I share the dislike of Leicester. Adam says, why is Arteta so intent on offering Eddie a contract? I think because he sees him as someone that he can use in the future in kind of a wider role, not just as a striker. That's why he's often brought him on in that wide left position. Clive talked about that in my discussion with him. I wouldn't hold it against him, but I would say that I don't agree with him on that one at all. Tafadar says, after watching today's performance, poor Tom is probably regretting leaving teaching for this. I'm really not. I really, really am not. Trust me. You take the rough with the smooth. If you're all of a sudden, if your mind's switching on the base of one game, that's not what football's about. You need to continue to take in the information across a longer period of time. That's why at the start of the season, I was very much thinking a change of manager was the right decision. We've got to Christmas and, I'm on the fence a lot more than I was. And a loss against Nottingham Forest is not going to change my mind back again at all. Shorif says, Tom, do you think we lack a few older heads who can be calming influences and take pressure off our younger players? The obvious answer is to say yes, but you have to remember that the senior, older player in Granit Xhaka was one of the big reasons why we lost the game against Man City. So it's not a guarantee that older, more experienced players will guarantee you better performances. I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of quality in this young side. I think we missed an experienced head in the midfield specifically, and I think Xhaka would have definitely done a better job than Patino or Lokonga today. But I just think that it's not as simple as saying let's go out and buy an experienced head, because look at Cedric, was one of our worst players on the pitch today. So you can't always just rely on a player's age getting you out of trouble. Gooner Legend says, is Arteta trying too hard to constantly flex his muscles? A new week, another peed off player. Again, I don't think that it was the wrong. I don't think he made the wrong decision. I think he was right to sub Tavares, and he should be peed off. And I hope he's annoyed. I hope he's really annoyed with his performance, Tavares, and I hope that he comes back from this positively. So there you go. I'm going to get rid of you because, honestly, if you're going to compare knife crime to this performance, you need to get your head screwed on properly. V. Roger says, we don't have quality in squad depth. If we get Champions League, we could be in a bigger trouble with a more intense season. And this is what I've been saying, is that we are a Lacazette injury away from disaster right now. We are a Xhaka injury away from a very, very immature and lacking in real quality and leadership midfield. And that's what we saw today. You're not going to see Bruno Guimaraes, Dean, is not coming this window. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it is absolutely, from my mind, out of the question that we spend that much money on a central midfielder. However, there are still plenty of quality central midfielders out there that we can sign during this window, but it's not going to be Bruno Guimaraes. Jack says, 9 players out. Let's not overreact. We need a few signings in the window and get the dead wood out. Garner says, so many upgrades needed. Why is Kolasinac getting minutes? Linny, who looks a Man City fan, says, forget about today. Can't change it. Concentrate on the Scousers. If Arsenal turn up, they can beat Liverpool. I agree with you, Linny. Kurasan says, Tom, is this result pushing Vlahovic further? No. No, it's not. Tahib says, Rob Holding thought he had the number 10 on the back of his shirt today, trying too many killer passes. I do think that Rob Holding's performances are influenced by how good Ben White's been and kind of the style of Ben White and why Arteta likes Ben White. I think Rob Holding wants to desperately stay at Arsenal. And I think he knows that to stay at Arsenal as a centre-back, you need to be able to play those long passes or those incisive, direct balls. And he's just not good enough to do them on a consistent basis. Newcastle will get a very good player if they sign Rob Holding for what they need. Rob Holding is a very solid defender, but that is about it. He's a very decent defender, but he's not an all-round Arsenal Arteta centre-back. And so, it's it's a player that should be moved on, and that place should be filled by William Saliba. William Saliba should absolutely come in and take that Rob Holding position in the team. Arguably a player that could have played at right back over Cedric. I would have played him over Cedric at right back, and can obviously rotate in with Gabriel and with White when they also need to rotate, or when we've got European fixtures, fingers crossed, next season. Paul says, did Arteta want to bring off all the outfield players but ended up picking Tavares? No, I think he was right in picking Tavares. Eight ball losses. He lost the ball 8 times in 30 minutes. So I think that's the right decision. Patrick says, solid as when City scored. Solid just means decent, as I said, Patrick. It doesn't mean perfect. So, let's not be petty. Venkatesh says, Tom, should we loan Lokonga next season to some promoted club? He's either too good for a 20-year-old or too poor for Premier League standard. I don't know what to say. Again, Lokonga has had some very, very good performances this season. Again, I point to Aston Villa as a very crucial game this season in which he was our best player on the day. So influential, was brilliant for our left flank with Smith Rowe and Tavares that day. He was better than Partey against Brighton. And he was missed against Man United, and he was missed against Everton when he was dropped for Granit Xhaka. So I don't think I would be loaning him. I would keep him in the team. But I think, he's been out of the team for a long time. He's come in cold, and he's suffered because he's had an 18-year-old kid next to him as well. And he's going to make mistakes. So I would not be hanging Lokonga out to dry based upon this performance whatsoever. Lewis says, think people saying the 30-minute sub is about Arteta making a statement is dumb. I agree with you. I don't think it's a statement. I think it was just a managerial decision. If Klopp does that, and Klopp has done that, I don't think it gets talked about anywhere near as much. But people really want to kind of create this Arteta kind of narrative that he wants to flex his muscles, as we've seen a comment pop up in the show already, or he wants to try and make statements, which I think is ridiculous. No, he's just making a managerial choice that a lot of managers probably would have made in the same situation. Last thing MA wanted, if it was a tight 1-0 lead, we had 100% a planned sub would be Kieran Tierney. And you also have to factor in that he could make 5 subs today. So he knew when he made that substitution, he still had 4 subs available to him. So it's not like he wasted a substitution. So there you go. I think you could probably get around £15 million for Rob Holding at Khorasan. So I think that would, if Newcastle came in for him, I'd be asking for minimum £15 million, maybe closer to 20. He's on a long-term contract, mid-20s, homegrown, and as I say, is a decent Premier League level defender. Abdul says, question, Tom, are we going to be signing players this winter transfer window? Yes, we are, is my expectation. Easy Arled says, have to praise Leno's attitude. Yeah, we haven't talked about Leno once today. Obviously, we conceded, but I thought Leno was very good. I thought he was good, and you have to commend his attitude. Gooner Legend says, let's be honest, it wasn't just the squad players that were poor. Odegaard, Saka and Martinelli were dreadful too. Let's have it right. Absolutely. Can't just pick certain players out and not talk about the others. I thought those 3 did not have the attitude that was right, which is a shame because I thought we kind of got over this Arsenal arrogance that we've had at times. Julian says, Tom, is Saliba happy to come back, irrespective of contracts? As far as I'm aware, he's not a sulker. I think that's harsh. I think that obviously when he was thrown into the under-23s, he was very frustrated, and you can understand why. He's a very good centre-back. He's a very good defender. He's a very modern defender that actually fits a lot of what Arteta wants. If Arteta gets rid of him and his reasoning is that he didn't feel he suited what he wanted in a defender, that's a load of rubbish. If he gets rid of him because of an attitude problem, maybe there's more credibility to that. But Saliba is actually exactly what Arteta wants from a defender. So I don't really know why he wouldn't bring him back. But my understanding is the club are very, very much looking forward to getting him back. They've been tracking him constantly. They've been going to games and watching him. Edu and Ben Napper went for the PSG game. All of the indications are that Saliba will return for next season and integrate into the squads. And they're going to try and sort out a new contract. That's as far as I'm aware. Ches Dozy says, sometimes the coach is as good as the players in his team. I won't blame Arteta for bringing in Kolasinac. 95 Wins says, Lokonga is good with someone with experience beside him. You can't expect a kid to come in and just marshal an 18-year-old Charlie Patino and expect that midfield's going to be bossing Nottingham Forest. And I think, who was it that tweeted me? Was it Girish, I think, that tweeted me before the game saying that we could have played more kids? People are disrespecting Nottingham Forest as a team who are a very decent championship side that, have been stuck in the championship for many, many years and has just been off the cusp of playoffs But this season, if they play like they played today, they can easily get into the playoffs this season. And you shouldn't be taking these teams lightly. Like, we really shouldn't be. And so to think that we could have played more kids in this game is an absolute joke. Why not play Chambers, Cole? I don't know. I would have played Chambers over Cedric. I really don't understand the Cedric thing. And I've been saying it for a fair few days now, and people have been going, Cedric's not awful. And I'm like, look at the game today. He's not great, is he? So, Lenny says, we've always taken these lower league teams lightly and have been beaten many times. Our reserve players are never as good as the most championship teams. If we want to win these games, play your best 11. I mean, just look at the team that City played against, who was it? Was it, or look at the team Chelsea played against Chesterfield. Look at the team that Man City played against. Who did they play? I can't remember. Someone in the lower leagues played a very strong team. You need to respect these teams. You need to play a good side. Tempest says, I think this is just one of those games which we just take things away and move on. Absolutely. Saeed says, need some serious improvement from the squad. They did try, but they should have done better. Dan says, we should have played Ben White and he's trying to wind me up. Not going to take it. Peter says, Tom, we need to have a solution for when Saka, Martinelli, Smith Rowe and Ødegaard are poor. I mean, the solution arguably is the depth in the wide position, which is typically Pepe, but he's not available. We didn't have Pepe. We didn't have Aubameyang. Lacazette was on the bench, obviously. We had Hutchinson and Biereth, though, and they should have. I really think they could have been brought on. That is a genuine criticism, I think, of Arteta, is that there was options. Swindon, thank you, Lenny. There was options there to use in the latter stage of the game. We just didn't. Julius says the Championship is a strong league. Some people are acting like we were playing against non-league opposition, perhaps against a League Two team when you're playing an academy, but not the Championship. Most of the teams in the Championship are Premier League sides. I mean, there isn't much difference between the teams, the bottom 4 or 5 teams in the Premier League and the top half of the Championship. There really isn't a lot of difference between those sides. David says, I'm with you, Tom. I would have rather had Mikel come on and watch Eddie scuff his lines. Mika Biereth absolutely should have been coming on. Patrick says, today was just woeing our squad depth in cold light of day. Wooing. Oh, I think I know what you mean. As in, like, Patrick, you're saying as if we were like putting them out in the market, putting them in the shop window. We are building and it will take 2 or 3 more windows. I don't think it will take... to be fair, if we can get stuff done in this window, if you can bring in a centre midfielder, if you can bring in a Vlahovic in this window, and then in the summer, you move on your Holdings, your Cedrics, your Kolasinacs, just the fringe players, and you bring in some more quality and depth. There's a real opportunity there to make this a strong Arsenal team, but we need to be more ruthless in the team. We need better ruthlessness in the market, and I'm hoping we're going to see that in the next week or so. Lars says, good, Spurs and West Ham gets more games. They wouldn't win it anyway. That's not a question. Obviously, it's annoying Spurs going through because they get an opportunity to win a trophy. But, I mean, when was the last time they did that? Andrew says, as a Forest fan, I thought the Arsenal took the game too lightly. I agree with you, Andrew. I think you're spot on, mate. Let's get rid of you. Said says, I think most of them may have thought it was an easy game and could just ease. The thing is, I can't get this in my head. I can't get in my head that Arsenal do this so often. And not just Arsenal. I say not just Arsenal because it's so many different players. You look at the team when we last played Forest, and I think it was only Rob Holding was the only player that was in the same team from that day. I think we had Nelson, Walcott, Welbeck, I think, started up top. Mertesacker played. Who was it left back? Was it Monreal or Gibbs or someone? I can't remember. But no, it wasn't. We played Saka. Was it Saka? Someone played left wing back, I'm sure. Nelson was right wing back. I don't think it was Saka. Someone played left wing back. I can't remember who it was. But that same team had the same kind of feel about the fact that we just didn't care, that there was a lack of real care. And we've done this time and time again when we played teams at the lower end of the league pyramid, and we just don't seem to be up for these games. It's really, really odd. Green Legend says, Tom, do you think we could see an incoming prior to Thursday? I'd be shocked if we brought someone in before Liverpool. We could bring someone in before Spurs, but I still think it's a push. People talk about why does Arsenal take so long to get deals done. It's because it's very indecisive, and the players that we actually tend to go for, we have a lot of players on a list and we just can't make our minds up at times. And it is frustrating. We should be quicker. I mean, you look at Everton, they've got 2 signings in already. Newcastle are getting, being really busy. Just put the money on the table for the midfielder that you want to bring in. If you want to get Arturo on loan, go and get Arturo on loan. If you want to go and get someone else, go get Gini Wijnaldum or whatever. Get Matthias Svanberg. Offer the money, get the deal done, get them in, get them playing. Vlahovic is trickier. I've got more sympathy for the length of time that could take to happen because it's a really difficult negotiation. But, in midfields, you can get midfielder in a week. You could absolutely go and get a Matthias Svanberg in a week. Go and do it. Put the money on the table and get him in. That's the frustration I have, is that I think there is the opportunity to get a deal done in the midfield before now and Spurs. And then even maybe before now in Liverpool and get them a couple of minutes before maybe Spurs. So that's the frustration that I have right now. Dan, thanks for the donation, mate. Much appreciate the support as always. For me, today was actually a good result. We need to be focused on top 4. I wouldn't call it a good result, Dan. I want to be progressing through the cup competitions, especially when we're not in Europe. However, now we're out of it, I will take the positives that, yes, there are less games to focus on. We've got more rest between a couple of fixtures. And, we're still in the League Cup semi-final. We've got a big game against Liverpool. Let's talk about Liverpool for a second. Now, I don't usually like put myself out there on a pedestal too much in regards to these kind of views. But I'm sorry, that's a load of BS, isn't it? False positive tests. Oh, what a surprise. Come off it. Really? Are we really genuinely going to believe that there was a load of false positives so they couldn't play that game? Honestly, it's just so frustrating. It's so obvious and clear in plain sight what was going on there. It really, really was. J2 the First says, this game was a big lesson. What I have realised is when we lose awfully, we bounce back incredibly. Runner games are harder this time, though. We say that. We've got Liverpool, Spurs, Liverpool. And then after Liverpool, Spurs and Liverpool, of which only one of them is a league game, there's some favourable fixtures coming up for Arsenal. Just having a look at the fixtures we have. Come on. Go on to see all fixtures. We've got Liverpool on Thursday. We've got Spurs on Sunday. We've got Liverpool again on the following Thursday. Then we have Burnley at home on Sunday. Then Wolves. That 4th round of the FA Cup would have been between Burnley and Wolves. And Wolves are looking good at the moment. Wolves are also going to be playing in that FA Cup game. And I think they have Norwich in the 4th round. So they're going to play a decent side on that Saturday or Sunday, whenever they're going to play that game. So we've got just over a week's rest to then play on Thursday against Wolves. And then we've got Brentford on the Saturday at home, followed by Watford away, then Leicester at home, which I think is a winnable game, Villa away, which is a winnable game, Palace away, which is a winnable game, Brighton at home, which is a winnable game, Southampton away, which is a winnable game, and then Man United at home on the 23rd of April. We've got a really good run of fixtures that we can genuinely look to pick up a lot of points in. We just need to build up that momentum again, and that's going to be crucial with the January window. The end of the season, however, the last few games of the season, you've got Man United at home, West Ham away, Leeds at home, Newcastle away, Everton at home, Wolves at home, Chelsea away. To be fair, we've got 3 games, and 2 of them that include Chelsea and Liverpool, that both need to be rescheduled. So those 2 fixtures could interrupt that nice run of form that we have that we need to sort out. So whilst I'm saying that there's a nice run of fixtures coming, those rescheduled ones could come in and then interrupt that and be horrid. But we'll have to wait and see. It'd be nice for us to pick up a load of points as much as possible. Abdul says, question, are we going for the Fiorentina striker midfielder? Abdul, go listen to my show that I did with Ben Jacobs yesterday on the channel. It answers a lot of your questions about Vlahovic. The Irish Serb guy, I don't know why I struggled reading that, all lowercase. The Irish Serb guy says, that was a little worrying. Not a free hit, but let's see what the next 5 games look like. Midfield is crazy light with Xhaka out with obviously a positive result. I feel like we've covered pretty much everything. If you think we've missed something, do leave it in the comment section below and do drop a like on today's show if you have enjoyed it. And even if you haven't, drop a like, show that support. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. is our 150th transfer 8 a.m. show. Do join us then. We'll be talking about all the latest information leading up towards that Liverpool game. I look forward to bringing that show to you. It's been an absolute pleasure to join you, as it always is. Keep your chin up. Don't lose your mind about this result. It's really not worth it. I will see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. And as always, Up the Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners.